morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
The first trainload of Charolais cattle was finally ready to pull out, and John Rudiger was among the half-dozen cowboys riding in the caboose, and that trip held a lot of adventures. You'll hear about some of them today, and never one to sit back and admire his accomplishments. Shortly after that, John had another idea.
I went to Hawaii on a holiday, and while I was over there, I kept thinking, how in the heck could we put a deal together to finance the gang ranch?
The biggest ranch in North America, the gang ranch with a checkerboard history, and you'll hear some of that story today, too. And Baxter Black has a tribute to a very special horse.
After running 20 steers, he was still bursting out of the box, giving his all, while the other boys were changing horses and skipping a turn.
Remember the days if you lived in the city, a grocery boy on a bike brought your groceries to your door? Well, Rangeland News looks at how that could be replaced by online ordering.
Some consumers have voiced concerns about spoilage of food ordered online.
Anyone who's ridden in the mountains in the late fall will appreciate today's cowboy poetry offering. There's another classic song of the West, a special song for Remembrance Day. And on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, I've talked a lot about what a good working ranch horse should be able to do. Today I'll look at the horsemanship of the working cowboy. And we'll board the Charolais Express heading west right after Jim Reeder leads us up the trail.
Swing your leg up for the saddle. Take your seats, boys. Let's move 'em on out. We got us a trail drive, and it's a hard life. Go easy on the reins, boys, but hold the herd in tight. The trail is a long, boys. The hill's unending. We're heading for water and a good night's graze. It's 5 a.m. now, a cool breeze and coffee. It's just about perfect for another 20-mile day. So swing your leg up for the saddle, and take your seats, boys. Let's move 'em on out. We got us a trail drive, and it's a hard life. Go easy on the reins, boys, but hold the herd in tight. Started out as a drover, I ate dust as a drag man. I rode flank chasing quitters, then took the point with the leading steers. And now I'm a trail boss. I buy and sell all the new stock and hire all the crew who can make a 1,000-mile trek. So swing your leg up for the saddle, and take your seats, boys. Let's move 'em on out. God is a trail drive, and it's a hard life. Go easy on the reins, boys, but hold the herd in tight. Go easy on the reins, boys, but hold the herd in tight.
Well, the cattle were loaded in the boxcars, bedded down with straw, lots of water and feed available, and they were pretty comfortable. But for the cowboys in the caboose, it was a different story.
One of the fortunate things was my brother was on the railroad for a number of years out of Langley, BC, and he worked over there. And when they hooked us on here, they had us at the tail end of the train. And of course, every time this freight train stops, you've got a 2.5-inch slack in every coupler, and you get a train with 150 cars, and if you're at the end of it, when that thing starts slamming together, it can really jolt you. And the same thing when they get going, if the time you add all those 2.5 inches, the front of the train's going pretty fast by the time the back one starts. And it was giving us an awful ride. Anyway, with my brother's knowledge of this, he soon got a hold of the engineer and got us switched, and we were up at the front of the train after that.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot better, smoother ride.
How were conditions for you guys in that caboose? It wouldn't be like riding on the Dayliner or the Supercontinental or anything like that, would it?
No, it was tight quarters in there, and of course those cabooses at that time, they had coal stoves in there, and that's what we did our cooking on, and any stops that we had that was long enough stops, we'd go get some more supplies. I think there was seven of us in that caboose.
Wow.
One of the instances, Chatney out of Red Deer, which is, he was on it, and one stop he went back to see what how the cattle were doing, and the train takes off while he's back there. This is in northern Ontario, and before the next stop was about 4 hours, and he's back there in there, and it's pretty cold at that time going through northern Ontario. So he said the best way he could keep warm is lay down beside the cattle when they were laying down between them to keep warm. Yeah.
Well, John Rudiger was really anxious to turn his very expensive imported bulls out with his best cows, but a situation came up that made that impossible. Just one more big roadblock you'll hear about when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Bringing the first Charolais cattle from France to Canada was an incredible challenge, and in keeping with the cowboy way, that no-quit attitude, a group of cattle industry pioneers weathered the bureaucracy, the holdups, the cut through tons of red tape, and when the cattle were finally safely unloaded from the train at their various destinations, well, it still wasn't over. And John Rudiger was one of those industry pioneers.
It was quite an experience. I guess once they arrived, the other interesting thing was that we had to quarantine them for 90 days on farm. And so after 90 days, they were the federal vets were to come and retest them. Well, our federal vet was Dr. Creech out of Lloydminster at that time, and so Dr. Creech gets notice from Wells that we have to retest these cattle after 90 days, but Creech forgot to read the 90 days, and when he gets this notice, it's 60 days. So he calls up and says he has to retest these cattle. Well, out they come and retest my cattle, and I had 2 bulls, and lo and behold, if one of my bulls didn't go down on TB. So here I had him out with the cattle and wanting to get everything I could bred to these bulls. And so I found out that they tested them 30 days too soon, and so I get a hold of Dr. Wells, and I said, Dr. Wells, they've tested this bull 30 days too soon. I think I should be able to get a retest later on. And we talked back and forth, and he said, well, you have to stay in quarantine until the bull's sent to slaughter. And I said, you mean I can't get a retest? And he said, no. Once they're tested, if they're positive, they gotta go to slaughter. So I said, well, boy, I want to get some more cows bred to them. And then Wells kind of changed the subject on me, and he said, are you going back? You got any permits, or are you going back to France to get some more cattle this year? And I said, yeah, I've got some more permits. And Ken says to me, well, John, if I were you, I'd send that bull to slaughter. He didn't tell me that. I read between the lines that there was no choice but to send him back to send him to slaughter. So I took him into Saskatoon to the Intercontinental Packers at that time. He got slaughtered, and I got on the plane to go select my next year's selection.
Right. Pretty expensive hamburger.
That's right.
Well, the story doesn't end here. There's much more to come after a song from Eli Barzy.
Out where the coyotes yip and cry, stout-hearted pony on the fly. Got the rolling hills before me, the prairie moon above. Got a letter and a promise from the sweetheart that I love. I'm about the richest gal I know, rhyming the ranges as I go. All my silver's in the stardust, my gold is in the moon. All my treasures in the trail I ride, the love I'm seeing soon. Out where the wind blows free, I'm never going to leave. Wearing my heart upon my sleeve, I'm riding home to you. Oodle-lady-o, dee-o, oodle-lady-ay, oodle-lay-o, oodle-lady-o, oodle-lay, oodle-lay, oodle-lady-o, oodle-lay, oodle-lay. Blue shadows start to fall, moon lights the canyon wall. Rowells ringing, I'm 10 feet tall. I'm riding home to you. Out where the wind blows free, I'm never going to leave. Wearing my heart upon my sleeve, I'm riding home to you. Oodle-lady-o, dee-o, oodle-lady-ay, oodle-lady-o, oodle-lady-o, oodle-lay, oodle-lo, oodle-lo, oodle-lay, oodle-lady-o, oodle-lo.
John Rediger of the famous Rediger Charlet Ranch had invited me to speak to the Canadian Charlet Association a few years back, and that's when I had the chance to sit down and have a great visit with John.
Just want to turn a little bit of a corner here, John, and I know that you had, at one time, you were part of a group that owned the famous Gang Ranch in BC, and I'm wondering when, you were so involved in the development of the Charlet breed in Canada and in breed improvement and promotion and everything else, what made you decide to get involved in the Gang Ranch at that turbulent point in its history?
Well, wanting to get into a ranch goes back a little bit farther than when we finally ended up getting in with the Gang Ranch. We actually had the Nicola Lake Ranch was for sale, and I'd put a deal together with some partners, and we'd actually we're ready to sign the deal with it, and the money was in the bank in Kamloops, and went to the lawyer's office, and our option on it ran out at noon on the day that we were there to sign the deal up, and the owner, or the managing owner, came up from Texas, and he was a lawyer out of Texas. And turned out that he really didn't want to sell the ranch, but because it was in an estate, and the other ones were pressing him to sell it. So here we agreed to all the terms and conditions, and so we were ready to sign it up, and we were going to give him a bank draft or go over to the bank and get the money. And then my lawyer said to him, well, this option runs out here at 12 o'clock. Will you extend that option, give us long enough time to go get the money? And he said, I'm sorry, when the option's up, it's up. And if you haven't got your money here, you lose your option. So I didn't, and he wouldn't guarantee that they would accept it if we went and get their money. Well, it was a little more involved because I had my ranch here in Calgary sold, subject to us getting the Nicola Lake Ranch, but it was subject to, as soon as I drew that money, my ranch was sold. Well, I didn't want to get caught with my ranch sold and not have the other ranch. So we tried to talk the guy into giving him an extension, and no way. And then, as it turned out, then Western Breeders, some guys from Western Breeders end up buying it because they were the next ones in line with an option. Yeah. And knowing what happened to us, they made sure they had their money in order, and they got it done.
What a situation. There you are, watching the clock ticking away towards noon when this option expires. Wow.
Well, we had about 15 or 20 minutes to get to the bank and back. and you can imagine that it might take 25 or 30 minutes to get the job done.
Wow.
So that was, and right at that time is when the gang ranch sold to Allsager, just about at the very same time.
Well, more to that story in a little while, and Baxter Black has a touching look at a very special horse. In the Rangeland News is still to come when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at a good horse. If your group or association is planning a meeting and are on a thrifty budget, check out Virtual Video Baxter. That's me. I'll video a personalized welcome, then furnish several humorous stories to run between your speakers. Sign books can be used as auction items. We've done rodeos, museums, bull sales, the Conservation Service. Use your imagination. Virtual Video Baxter. Give us a call, 800-654-2550 at baxterblack.com. He spent his last year living a horse's dream, being loved by a little girl. A $400 dental bill at age 25 extended his life. I've owned many horses, and he's the only one I've ever buried. His greatest trait was that he had try. He was hard and tough and wiry, just the sort that won't say die, was how Banjo Patterson put it in The Man from Snowy River. He made a good cowman out of my daughter, won her a buckle in the team penning. He never placed in the halter class, always a little overweight and a mite short. And I took a lot of hoorah from the well-mounted boys at the roping arena. But still so slight and weedy, one would doubt his power to stay, and the old man said, that horse will never do. But after running 20 steers, he was still bursting out of the box, giving his all, while the other boys were changing horses and skipping a turn. And Solid, let me tell you, even with my horseshoeing skills, he stayed sound, and every time I'd buy another horse, he'd become my backup. He wasn't my best, but he was my ace. Larry McWhirter, Black Draught. He was 13 when we bought him. He'd done ranch work and become a little britches all around, and when he was 17, he took my son for his first ride at age 0. A kid's horse needs a cool head, and with wise old Skeeter between their knees, they was safe as if in their own beds. Larry McMahon, Skeeter. At age 22, he moved to the ranch with us and started checking cows in the brush and the rocks. My nephews and nieces and tenderfoot friends were his students. Never a plug, boss at the bunk, a voracious eater, he finally wore down. His muscles melted away, but his spirit remained. And that's when we found him a little girl. And she weighed less than a saddle and a block of salt. And he stumbled a little at the trot, but she looked like a rodeo queen on his back. To see a fine lady upon a white horse, ride a cock horse. Now he's gone, died in the night, just quit breathing. Amigo, my friend, so true to the end, eras buen caballo, amigo, my friend. Buffum and Fleming, amigo. I said a few words over him, and now I got to go tell the kids. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
On a ranch far from town, no other kids around. I live with my folks, there you see. Though I was quite young, there was work to be done. On that, Ma and Pa did agree. So they gave me my chores and a fast little horse with a saddle much larger than me. And together we showed we could carry our load. He was my amigo to me. Amigo, my friend, you ran like the wind. On you I could always depend. Amigo, my friend, so true to the end. Eras buen caballo, amigo, my friend. I recall sunny days out of gathering strays, my hat pulled down tight on my head. Through wind, rain, and snow, we made quite a show, making the rounds on our spread. Just a boy on the loose, on his favorite cayuse, that ran like a true thoroughbred. One small young cowboy just a riding for joy, from early morning to bed. Amigo, my friend, you ran like the wind. On you I could always depend. Amigo, my friend, so true to the end. Eras buen caballo, amigo, my friend. Of my own, I cherish those old memories of the good times we had, my mom and my dad, and my compañero and me. How I rode straight and tall from summer to fall, as proud as a young boy could be. And though he is gone, all those days still live on when I think of amigo and me. Amigo, my friend, you ran like the wind. On you I could always depend. Amigo, my friend, so true to the end. Eras buen caballo, amigo, my friend. Eras buen caballo, amigo, my friend.
The legendary Sons of the Pioneers, with an unbroken connection back to the beginning with Roy Rogers, Tim Spencer, and Bob Nolan. Up to the present, their wonderful Western harmonies are still honoring those traditions, and their live show is spectacular.
Cool, clear water,
The famous Sons of the Pioneers will be in Edmonton November 20th and 21st in Festival Place in Sherwood Park, and at the Red Deer Memorial Centre, Red Deer, Alberta, Wednesday, November 22nd. For the Red Deer Show, get your tickets at the Black Knight Ticket Inn or by calling 403-755-6226.
Drifting along with the tumbling,
The news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says, we watched a news report the other morning saying a couple of big box stores, I think it was Costco and Walmart, were teaming up with Amazon to have groceries delivered to the doorstep of consumers who order online. Now, I doubt if the grocery boy and his bicycle could ever find our place, and I wonder how this'll work. Maybe not too well, according to this report from Gary Crawford.
Many retailers are creating or growing their online e-commerce systems, and consumers are using them. But in the grocery business,
there's not been a lot of inroads in terms of e-commerce into the grocery sector.
The National Retail Federation's Mark Matthews, and indeed at last count, grocery and beverage e-commerce sales only accounted for
less than 0.25% of total sales at food and beverage stores.
Tiny. Agriculture Department research economist Abby Okrent. Why such small numbers? First, it's not easy or cheap for grocery stores to set up e-commerce systems, and she says some consumers have voiced concerns about spoilage of food ordered online, but also
food is sensory, and so when you do it online, it takes away all that touch, feel, smell of the food.
Also, stores have added things like restaurants, cooking demos, food and beverage tastings to attract people into the stores, and it seems to be working. One survey says 86% of consumers still buy most of their groceries in stores. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
A horse in Ventura County, California got himself into some trouble last week when he made an attempt to escape from his stall. According to a tweet from the Ventura County Fire Department, the horse's companions were turned out and he wanted to join them, so he attempted to sneak out the window. And the horse was able to get his front end, including both front legs, out the window, but he wasn't able to clear the stall wall with his back half. And he wasn't seriously injured from this attempt, but he was stuck there with the wall digging into his abdomen. Fortunately, the rescue team got him free and reported that he was walking normally after the ordeal. And a veterinarian was called to the scene, checked him out, and said he was okay. The Baltimore Police Department mounted unit recently welcomed a percher and gelding by the name of Slurpee. The purchase price of the new horse was sponsored by a donation from 7-Eleven, and he was named after the convenience store's signature frozen drink. In Baltimore, as in most cities with mounted units, police horses are used to patrol the streets during special events and other busy times. Officers often say that they have a better view of the area from the back of a horse than they would on the ground or on a bicycle, but police horses are also helpful in fostering a sense of community between the residents and the officers who patrol the neighborhoods. Checking out the schedule for the next few weeks at the BC Livestock Producers Co-op, November the 14th, a special calf and yearling sale in Kamloops. And November the 15th, it's the Williams Lake Calf Sale. November 16th, Williams Lake Regular Sale. November 17th, the Vanderhoof Red Cow and Heifer and Regular Sale. And, let's see here, on November the 21st, of course, a regular sale in Kamloops. For all the information, go to bclivestock.bc.ca. And across the rocks at Innisfail, pre-sort sales now underway at the Innisfail Auction Market. Calves are weighed Sundays for Monday sale. Regular sale every Wednesday, and of course 2 horse sales a month. And the Wednesday sales start at 9 with bred cows coming through at noon. For more information, see InnisfailAuctionMarket.com or give them a call at 1-800-710-3166. And I guess we're down to the final item. You know, when I was a kid, our mom used a lot of metaphors to try and make Jim and me see her point. But sometimes she would mix them up a little bit, like, you buttered your bread, now lie in it. Or, patience comes to those who wait. Or, if you're looking for a job, put your best face forward. And one time when a neighbor was in a no-win situation, she said, boy, he's on the horns of a bull in a china shop. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll look at the horsemanship of working cowboys. And there's more about John Rudiger and the legendary Gang Ranch when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. I've talked a lot about what a well-broke ranch horse should be capable of doing, and today, on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll look at some of the elements of horsemanship that I think working cowboys should be aware of. And there's more about the famous Gang Ranch with John Rudiger. First, though, the 17th annual Spirit of the West Cruise will be something unforgettable. My wife Billy and I will be hosting a big group of ranchers, farmers, horse and cattle folks, and Spirit of the West listeners for a trip I know many of you have had on your bucket list for a long time. September 16th, 2018, we will sail out of Quebec City and cruise Canada's maritime provinces in all the glory of the fall colors, including stops in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Sydney and Halifax, Nova Scotia, St. John, New Brunswick and the Bay of Fundy, Bar Harbor, Maine, Boston, Portland, Maine, and Cape Liberty, New Jersey, with an optional stay in New York City. Now, just for the Spirit of the West group, we have a tour of a cattle operation in Nova Scotia. We'll have all our great Western music concerts and sing-alongs, and we'll be swapping lots of ranching stories. And we'll have a lot of special activities just for our group. You'll find more details on the cruise section of our website at hugh-mclennan.com and on our cruise Facebook page, and you can always call the toll-free number 1-800-530-0131.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
At Irvine Tack and Western Wear, you won't find this.
Hey, yo!
But you will find this.
Welcome to Irvin's. How can I help you?
You won't find this.
What size boots you wear there, boy? You got tiny feet.
But you will find this.
Absolutely, we have your size. In fact, I've got the perfect pair for you right here.
The one and only Irvine Tack and Western Wear, something for everyone. Cowboys and cowgirls to city folks too. It's Western Wear with a welcome twist. Off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield. Open 7 days a week.
Canada's largest Western store.
We were waiting for the liner to come up for another load of cows that we'd spent all day gathering, and the question came up, what makes a real working cowboy? And the consensus among these top hands was a good cowboy should be able to do it all. Ride, rope, shoe horses, train horses, start colts, work cattle, and fix fence. Well, I feel the same way about a good horse. He should have well-developed foundation skills no matter what the job is. Some horses are trained for only one specific purpose, like cutting or reining, and while he might be really good in one area, sometimes a young horse gets too specialized, I think, and that limits his abilities in the long run. I've seen world champion reining horses that are afraid of a cow, and I've seen some really good cutting horses that just can't take the pressure of roping. So I think there's great value in giving young horses a real variety of experiences to develop both their mind and their body. The first thing I want is the horse to be well broke and that can take up to a year or more to get him there. And then I want him to really pay attention to cow work. Every time I ride, I like to work on refining his responses and improving our relationship by having him comfortable, confident, and tuned into me all the time. Now, in the early stages, if you have some trails where you can go for a few miles and help them learn to watch where they put their feet, step over some windfalls, cross some ditches, and go up and down some slopes, to my mind, that's more important than a refined backup, a perfect side pass, or a spin on the haunches at this stage. Those things I find are way easier to teach when the horse is basically comfortable, confident, and in a real learning state of mind. The first few rides out on the trail can be easier if you have one or two riding partners on solid, quiet horses. Your colt will usually pick up on the calm attitude of the horses with him. On the other hand, if the other horses are nervous and anxious, then prancy, that'll transmit to your horse too. Exposing young horses to a variety of environments and giving them different jobs is, I think, the best way to prepare them for the show ring, whether they're aimed at roping, cutting, rein cow horse competition, barrels, or anything else. And for Irvine Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Something our horses sure enjoy is that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration. You can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Well, this is, of course, the weekend we remember the incredible sacrifices of our veterans, and it's so important to never forget what it took to bring us this quality of life we're able to enjoy today. And I just came across this song, written and sung by a guy who was a pretty good bronc rider, singer, songwriter, and farrier. This is Eldon Blanchard and Canadian Freedom.
Well, the sayings that we hear fill our minds like save the best for last. Don't put off what you can do today. In Mounties, they always get their man. I don't know about the redcoats if they gun down every outlaw in the West, but our sayings and the men who built this land, we know what's for the best. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky, that the passions and the heartaches of our forefathers caused some of them to die. But the sacrifice they made led to freedom for friends like you and I. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky. Just put yourself in the shoes of a soldier who's taken Vimy Ridge, as he screams in pain and agony and watches other comrades lose their lives. Or the men who settled on the prairie worked their aching fingers to the bone, just to feed their children's children so that one day you and I could have a home. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky, that the passions and the heartaches of our forefathers caused some of them to die. But the sacrifice they made led to freedom for friends like you and I. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky. Talk about the way it used to be. Just remember they were there, and there's reasons why you don't put off today. Now I think about the Mounties, if they hadn't gunned down outlaws in the West, it might have been a different land we're living in, and not quite for the best. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky, that the passions and the heartaches of our forefathers caused some of them to die. But the sacrifice they made led to freedom for friends like you and I. So remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky. Just remember when you see that maple leaf up there flying in the sky.
The history of the famous gang ranch goes back to 1863, and for a long time it was known as the biggest cattle ranch in North America, but I think since the latest acquisitions, the Douglas Lake Ranch might be a little bigger now. The famous JH brand, registered by Jerome Harper, is still in use. In the late 1970s, the ranch was bought by Alsager Holdings, and that was the first time in a long time that the ranch actually had been Canadian-owned. Lonnie Jones was the manager and cow boss back in those days, and Bob Muncie actually was the cow boss before Lonnie took over. A lot of good cowboys have added the gang ranch to their resumes. Tim O'Byrne was cow boss when Ryan Fritz hired on. And RBC Dominion Securities top wealth management specialist Fred Feistman earned his spurs riding on the gang ranch. It's where he learned to do cesarean sections on a frozen side hill in the middle of the night. And Terry Milliken put on a lot of miles for the gang. Ed and Raquel Russell put in miles and threw a lot of loops. Great bronc rider Wasey Marr. I shouldn't start naming them because I'm going to miss too many, but there was so many great hands that rode there. And Larry and Bev Ramstead have managed the ranch since 1989, and they have just done an incredible job. When I had a chance to visit with John Rudiger a few years back, he told me about some of his involvement.
I put a deal together with a group of partners to buy the gang ranch, and Clark Borth, which you met from Vanderhoof, he and I met. I went to Hawaii on a holiday, and while I was over there, I kept thinking, how in the heck could we put a deal together to finance the gang ranch? And what I come up with is, we said, well, if we took and put packages of cattle together and sold them to investors, they could be hobby farmers and get a tax write-off on it, and we'd manage the cattle for them, and that's how we could put the deal together to pay for the deal, because it's pretty hard to make a ranch pay for its way if you got a huge debt over your head.
And this would have been in 80?
In 83, when I come back from Hawaii, and Clark met us at Cache Creek, and it was really, really cold. I can remember that. We sat for 3 days in a motel room, punching figures on a little calculator, trying to figure out, whether this thing would work or not. So then from there, I put these partners together, and we ended up buying the gang ranch. And one of my partners was the sheikh from Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Effendi. And we got operating, and then we needed about $2 million more to really put enough irrigation equipment and that in there and put enough cattle to make it work. And the only guy that had any more money left at that time of the 6 partners was the sheikh. So he didn't want to put more money in unless everybody put in their share, and so we decided, well, we'd have to sell, and then he said, well, you put your price on your interests, and if it's reasonable, I'll buy you all out. And so that's what happened.
Well, there's still more to this story, so stay tuned. Coming up, a beautiful classic Song of the West, and then a real nice piece of cowboy poetry when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This week, a beautiful song, so little known or heard, written by Bob Nolan, is what we have in our classic Song of the West segment. The copyright was applied for in 1945, but the Sons of the Pioneers never recorded the song commercially. It was added to their radio transcriptions, and there was one version that Bob Nolan recorded on his own. It is a song that Bob Nolan particularly loved, and he kind of hoped it would catch on with the public. And Bob Wagner recorded the song in 2003 and included it on his CD, Call to the Faraway Hills. So here's this week's classic Song of the West, Bob Wagner with Bob Nolan's Old Forgotten Trails.
Old forgotten trail, I still remember silent slumber. You alone know where to find them somewhere. Someday I know I'll go where you go somewhere. I'll meet them there, and we will ride together, old forgotten trail. Though their footprints leap in silent slumber, you alone know where to find them somewhere. Someday I know I'll go where you go somewhere. I'll meet them there, and we will ride together, old forgotten trail. We'll ride together, my pals and I.
Bob Wagner, of course, an amazing musician, playing all the instruments and singing all the parts on our classic Song of the West. Well, Charlie Camden was a longtime member of the Idaho Cowboy Poets Association, and he was a much-loved horseman, outdoorsman, writer, singer, and poet. He rode across the Great Divide in October of 2013. We still keep in touch with Charlie's widow, Kathy, and she's still active in the association. I think the last time I talked with Charlie was when we were both on the Western Heritage Show with Toe Tappin' Tommy Tucker on KRLC a number of years back. This is Charlie Camden in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight and the season's last ride.
Hoarfrost stands the hair on my ponies, pack ropes frozen hard in the coil. Shod hooves ring out like cathedral bells on this high country, frozen thin soil. Winter descends on the highlands as a gray org with an ice-taloned hand, and makes sun rays slant from the distant south, with summer chased to a distant land. The animals have all moved lower, and the bears sleep an unknowing sleep. They feel not the cold winds in the winter, as they dream of the salmon, silver and sleek. It's damn sure time to leave this high country. Heavy snow will soon claim it all. The camps and wild places lie beyond closed trails, and their good times, mere memories to recall. My cabin waits by the river. Its fireplace beckons and glows, and I'll sit by its warmth on deep winter nights, sipping brandy as the bitter winds blow. Outside in the barn, my horses will nicker, in the warm stalls, secure and clean. And with their eyes half closed, they'll bury their nose in the rich hay shaken loose in dark green. These saddles will hang from a lofty beam, with the ropes coiled neatly on the side, and the padding all hung to catch the air as they wait for next season's ride.
Well, thank you so much for making the ride. I will be back here next week at the same time, and I sure hope you can too. As always, many thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. They are working hard on plans for the 2018 Kamloops Cowboy Festival. More about that in the coming weeks. And if you're looking for tractor parts, any make, any year, see Mark's page, bctractorparts.com. Oh yeah, and the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine has some fine reading in it. You can subscribe at cowboycountrymagazine.com or just call Kendra at 1-800-943-7336. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.